Welcome, this is Nick from Beer Bat Reps, and today I'm showing you my love of all things Dispossessed and Dwarves in the world of Warhammer Fantasy. It's a long-term process. We've been collecting dwarves, my brother and I, since 1996. I was 9 years old. So basically, we've amassed this collection. So this will be a series of videos based on where dwarves are now in terms of AOS 2.0 and how they factor into the game, how you can use them, each individual unit, their strengths and weaknesses, and how they're still a very powerful and varied force. It's kind of a strange the way you field them now. You can either go straight Dispossessed, in which case you have to take it from the General's Handbook. That's my preference. You can also use a few dwarf units in the new Cities of Sigmar book. But they've really retconned a lot of the units if you go that direction. I mean, they don't even have Dwarf Warriors. Longbeards are your only battalion for that one. I think Iron Breakers as well. But I want to focus on a pure dwarf army. So you would need the General's Handbook, the most recent one. So if you go to Dispossessed, pour yourself a frothy dwarven ale, Buckman's brew, and we will begin. So, page 88, Dispossessed. This section describes the allegiance abilities available in the Dispossessed army, including battle traits for the army, command traits for its general, and artifacts of power available to its heroes. So, first and foremost, you have the battle trait. Stubborn to the end. The Dispossessed are renowned for their refusal to admit defeat, especially in the face of overwhelming odds. So that goes way back. I mean, you could go all the way to Tolkien. Think of Gimli from Lord of the Rings. Think of anything you've ever seen with dwarves. They are tough, they are resolute, they do not back down, they're stubborn, they're hard to move, low center of gravity. So, how this works in terms of game terms is, if the unmodified roll for a battle shock test for a friendly Dispossessed unit is a 1, 2, or 3, that unit is treated as having passed the battle shock test, irrespective of any modifiers to the battle shock test or their bravery characteristic. So what that means is you should go large units. Large units for the win if you're playing Dispossessed. All you gotta do is roll 1, 2, or 3 and no one runs on your battle shock bravery test. So it's very good. And when we start going unit by unit, you'll find that there are banners that you can take in each unit that have the amount of models that run. So, for instance, if you don't roll a 1, 2, or 3, and let's say you roll a 5, and you would have lost 2, you're only going to lose 1. So this is the type of army that you basically have to kill every model, start to finish. The next one is called Grudge Bound. When a Dispossessed army goes to war, sparks of bitterness over ancient grudges are fanned into seething flames. After setup is complete, but before the battle begins, choose or roll for a grudge from the table on the right. The rules for this grudge apply to all friendly Dispossessed units for the duration of the battle. So, there's this little chart. And this is going to be a special rule for your entire army. So, you choose it after you see your opponent. And basically what it comes down to is you get to reroll hit rolls of 1 against a very specific type of opponent. And you choose it after you see your opponent. So you're going to be rerolling 1s to hit. First one, Stuck Up. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by friendly Dispossessed units that target a hero. Any hero. That one's pretty good. I think there are better ones, but your whole army just rerolls 1s to hit. That's shooting and combat against heroes. Pretty amazing. Next is Speed Merchants. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by friendly Dispossessed units that target a unit with a move characteristic of 10 or more. So, rerolling 1s against the super fast armies out there. Pretty good, but you'll see that a lot of armies fall into these next few. Third is Monstrous Cheaters. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by friendly dispossessed units that target a monster. The next one is Cowardly Hordes. Same thing, reroll hit rolls of 1, but when you target a unit that had 20 or more models when it first set up. So even if you get that down to like 5 models, you're still rerolling 1s. So that was pretty good against horde armies. Sorry about my dogs barking like crazy. The next one, Shoddy Craftsmanship. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks that target a unit that has a save characteristic of 2+, 3+, or 4+. So a 4+ save or better. If your opponent has it, you're rerolling 1s. That, in my opinion, is the best one because that's going to also work against most monsters. So the monster one seems redundant. Also, the one where you reroll 1s against heroes seems redundant because most of them have a 4-up save or better. So Shoddy Craftsmanship, you'll find most of the time you're going to be choosing between rerolling 1s to hit against armies with 4+ save or better, or reroll 1s to hit against hordes, units that are 20 or more. So typically based on your opponent, you see an army of Skaven, you're going to choose Cowardly Hordes. But a lot of times, at least when I play, people bring elite, people bring good armor. Shoddy Craftsmanship is the way to go. The last one is called Sneaky Ambushers. You reroll 1s to hit against a unit that's in cover or started the battle as a reserve unit. Take that what it is. It's all right. There's definitely better ways to go about it. I really think Cowardly Hordes or Shoddy Craftsmanship is the way to go. So basically, you're a horde army with high defense that's good against other hordes or elite armies, and you choose it after you see your opponent. It's very, very good. They're not a top tier army by any means, but if you really just have been playing this since you were a kid like me, I've been playing Dwarfs since I was 9 years old. It just gives them a good hit, gives them a real good punch, and makes them flexible and good against any opponent. So next thing we're going to do is go to command traits. So, first one, Resolute. The general inspires his warriors to new heights of stubbornness. Friendly dispossessed units wholly within 12 inches of this general pass battle shock tests on a roll of 1 to 4 rather than 1 to 3. And that's speaking of the stubborn to the end battle trait. So now a 1 through 4 you auto pass. It sounds awesome, but wholly within 12 is actually pretty hard to do. If you see like this guy, for instance, even if I were to set him right here, wholly within 12 would barely cover all these units. That being said, it's still pretty strong. I mean, if you just want to make sure your opponent has to kill every single model, that's the way to go. The next one we're going to go to is Resilient. Let me take a sip of this brew. So, Resilient. This general is hale and hardy, even by the dowdy standards of the Dispossessed. +1 wound, nothing crazy. It's not that great when you see a lot of, like my newer armies like Deepkin and my Troll army, they have command traits that are +2 wounds. So when you see ones that are +1, it's not great. So we skip that one. Battle Fury. In the midst of combat, this mighty warrior is known to fly into a whirl of violence. Roll a dice after this general resolves their attacks in the combat phase. On a 6, they can pile in an attack for a second time. Do not roll again after resolving the second set of attacks. So, the game lasts 5 turns, so you should have it happen once, where he fights for a second time. Well, no, it's in the combat phase, not your combat phase. So, okay, so say you somehow get into combat turn 1, you'll have yours and your opponent's combat phase. So really that should be 10 attempts to roll a 6. Still not great. Still not great. Just to fight again. So far Resolute's the best, but we'll keep pushing on through, see if a better one pops up. Siege Master. Neither brick nor stone can stand in the path of this Durden's rage. Do not apply the cover modifier to save rolls for attacks made by friendly dispossessed units wholly within 12 inches of the general. Now you're getting somewhere. 12 inches of ignore cover. In AOS, so much of the game is based on combat that you would think, ignoring cover, but people get cover in combat in AOS. So that's pretty good. You can either hit them hard in combat when they think they're bunkered up, or you can shoot with all these war machines and ignore cover. So that's pretty good. Siege Master is a pretty good one. Next one, unforgiving. Those who strike this Durden are soon repaid with his untempered wrath. Add +1 to hit and wound rolls for attacks made by this general that target a unit that has inflicted any wounds on this general. So, I don't know how you guys feel about this one. When you're in combat with a little Dwarf King, you know, the Warden King, he's got like 5 wounds. It's rough, because by the time they wound you, you're probably half dead or dead. So being able to reroll hits and wounds against that unit that wounded you, I mean, how many people are going to take 1 wound off you, and then you're all supercharged against them? I personally wouldn't choose that one. Maybe if it was some giant monster, yeah, that's awesome. But it's one little guy. And then the last one, Grudge Bearer. This is a good one. This Durden is quick to add new names to his list of grudges. Once per battle, in your hero phase, if this general is on the battlefield, you can pick a new grudge to replace the original grudge you chose for your army. This is great. So basically, let's say you chose... Okay, let's say you're playing against a Skaven army like we talked about. And it's hordes of Skaven, but with multiple large monsters. But the monsters maybe have a 5+ save. So you don't want to do shoddy craftsmanship where you do reroll ones against armies with good saves. You'll want to do probably monster cheaters so that you can reroll ones to hit against all the monsters, and then once they're dead or close to dead, you then switch it to cowardly hordes and start rerolling ones against all the hordes. You want flexibility in AOS, also in 40k. Flexibility is king. For an army that has bad maneuverability and 1 wound models, you gotta squeeze every single bit of efficiency out of this army, and I really think Grudge Bearer is the way to do that. The only other one I would possibly do is Siege Master or Resolute. So do you want your army to not run as much, which it already runs less than any army in all of Warhammer, other than maybe I think the new Tomb Kings, the new undead army. I think they're like immune to battle shock. But do you want your army to shoot and ignore covers? That's pretty good. But I think Grudge Bearer is the way to go. It just creates so much flexibility. I guess it depends on your opponent. You can choose it as you go. So move on to artifacts. Now, if you're longtime dwarf players, artifacts used to be 3 pages. Back in the day, well, basically my whole childhood growing up playing Warhammer, a dwarf. Okay, so like the leader of any army would get 100 points to spend on relics. This is aging me a little bit. But the dwarves got 125. And the runesmiths got 150. So dwarves could really just stack the relics. You could have a relic on your axe, you could have a relic on your armor, you could have a relic on like a ring, on a necklace. You could go all out. Now, it's just one little page, one little box. But, we'll take what we can get. I'm just happy to still be able to use my army. But we'll see if there's any really good ones. I know there's one that is very popular in the tournament scene, and you see a lot. But we'll go through them. So first one, Heavy Metal Ingot. Imbued with the internal might of mountains, the ingot makes an immovable object and an unstoppable force of the Durden who carries it. You can reroll save rolls for attacks that target the bear if the bear did not move in the same turn. So, reroll and save rolls, that's pretty good. I mean, problem is not being able to move. So, let's say you had your warlord or your king with the command trait Siege Master to give all these war machines ignore cover. He's going to be sitting still so that he can keep his bubble going. So if he's sitting still anyway, you might as well have him reroll saves in case someone shoots at you. So that was alright. I don't like that you can't move, but there's going to be plenty of games where the enemy crashes into your wall of dwarf shields and Grumroll armor, in which case, it could be pretty good. Something to think about. So the next one, this is the main one. This is the one people talk about. Well, the very few people who talk about Dispossessed are dwarves. Ancestral Pickaxe. The Dwarden of old carved mighty tunnels underneath the lands of the mortal realms. This axe is one of the few tools to have survived from that bygone age. Once per battle, at the start of your movement phase, you can remove the bearer and up to one other friendly dispossessed unit within 6 inches of the bearer from the battlefield. So you take your king and your unit of 20 handgunners, poof, remove from the battlefield. You then set them up again at the end of your next movement phase, anywhere on the battlefield, wholly within 6 inches of each other and more than 9 inches away from your enemy. So if you think you can make a 9-inch charge, sure, pick up your king and your hammers, but really, you take your king and you take your 20 handgunners and you pop up, 9, 10 inches away, whatever, from your opponent and just blast them to bits. It's nasty. It's real good because there's so many things that can stack with it. He has an ability that gives, I think, reroll wounds of 1 to a unit. So now they're rerolling hits of 1 and wounds of 1. You could also hit them with a Rune Priest +1 to their Rin. So now they're Rin 2, winning on 3s, rerolling hits of 1 and wounds of 1. It's nasty. It's nasty. Something to think about. I mean, that's, like we talked about with a flexible army, that's the way to go. But we'll go through the rest, see if there's any that stand out. Third one, the Teardrop of Grungni. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. When this unembellished orb is hurled at the foe, it releases a searing spray of molten lead. Those not slain outright are encased in the rapidly cooling metal. Nasty. Once per battle, at the start of your shooting phase, pick one enemy unit within 6 inches of the bearer. That unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. In addition, if the target is a monster or a hero, it must have its characteristic in its next movement phase. So, D3 mortal wounds. That's it. You just dish it out. D3 mortal wounds. But if it's a hero or monster, it has its movement. Which sounds great, but you're already only thrown at 6 inches. So if they're 6 inches away, having their movement isn't going to matter. I guess if he popped out... No, you have to take that instead of the Ancestral Pickaxe. That's just a pass, I would say. There could be usages for this that might be great, but I'm not seeing it right now. You're a low movement model. You can only throw it 6 inches. So when you have their movement, they're already 6 inches away. It's not great. Next one, Grudge Rune. Etched on this symbol of power is the name of one who has stoked the ire of this Durden hero. When the grudge is fulfilled, the name fades so that a new name can be carved. After setup is complete, but before the battle begins, pick one enemy hero. You can reroll hit and wound rolls for attacks made by the bearer that target that enemy hero. That's pretty cool. I mean, if you've ever used like... there's a 3-headed flesh hound with the Khorne army, Khorne demons. I think it's Karanak the Hound. He has that same rule. Basically, when the game starts, you pick one hero, and that's his prey. He's going to reroll all hits and wounds against it. But he's very, very fast, whereas this dwarf is very, very slow. So, Ancestral Pickaxe is still the best one, in my opinion. But let's keep going. Next one, Pile Driver Gauntlets, created by Avric Fort Builder to lay foundation stones in the most unyielding surfaces across the realms. These master-crafted gloves are equally useful for knocking the enemy off their feet. At the start of the combat phase, you can declare that the bearer will strike the ground instead of attacking. If you do so, until the end of that combat phase, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy models that are within 6 inches of the bearer. Instead of attacking. Alright, so if you've played Sylvaneth, you have their huge tree-ents, or treemen, They can stomp and still attack, and their stomp does the same thing, -1 to hit. So if his whole job as king is to just support this pack of hammerers, or pack of miners, or pack of warriors, then yeah, dishing out -1 to hit for everyone within 6 inches could be pretty good. I mean, you're losing all of his attacks, but I mean, a Dwarf King is not usually carving through a bunch of ranks of enemies anyway, so dishing out -1 hit could be pretty good. Last one, Resounding Gromrel Horn. Like the metal from which it is forged, the horn's blast is pure and true, and it fills every Durden heart with unwavering vigor. Once per battle, at the start of your hero phase, the bearer can use this artifact. If they do so, add 2 to the bravery characteristic of friendly dispossessed units until your next hero phase. Board wide. +2. You're already auto-passing every bravery test on a 1, 2, or 3. Or 1, 2, 3, 4 if you're taking the resolute command trait. As I said earlier, a lot of these banners, unless they change them, I'm going to go through them unit by unit, and they do update rules quite often, so we'll check, when we get to each unit. A lot of the banners already have the amount of models that are running. So I just don't see when that is going to be necessary. It's very good. +2 bravery. Board wide for a turn. It's awesome. It could save you in the clutch, in the most important turn of the whole game, when your opponent got a double turn, and it's now or never, and he's going to break you and win or not, and then you have a chance. That's good. But when you compare it to the pile driver gauntlets that just dish out a 6-inch bubble of -1 to hit, or the ancestral pickaxe, which lets you tunnel under the ground with your leader and a whole unit, it's just not as good. So I think most people go ancestral pickaxe because it's just so much wildly better than the rest. So yeah, that's Dispossessed. That's it, guys. That's it. 2 pages. You could say that's not a lot, but when you look in the Cities of Sigmar book, there's very little. There's very little dwarves, unfortunately. There's no cannons. You can't take a dwarf cannon in Cities of Sigmar. No bolt thrower, no grudge thrower, which is their catapult. No organ gun. The things that make them tick, the things that make them great. You can't take dwarf. You can't take a dwarf warrior unit. Just the classic dwarf warriors. I have loved these since AOS came out because, I had them before then, but they're, in my opinion, one of the cheapest models in the game that have a point of rend. It's not easy to find rend on a model that cheap. They also wound down 3s with their great weapons. So try to find models that cheap that wound down 3s and have a rend. You might find the basic orc boy, not Iron Jaws or Savage Orcs like the old orc boys. You might be able to find it there. And I have like 40 of them fully painted, so to switch to pure longbeards, it's just not what I'm interested in. They also don't have the handgunners or the quarrelers, which are just awesome. I love these units. So, in my opinion, I'm not touching Cities of Sigmar for my dwarf army until they absolutely make me. Until the next one is out and says everything in this book is obsolete, and then I look through and there's no Dispossessed. I'm sticking with Dispossessed. There's still some negatives to Dispossessed. One of my favorite units, these are called Dwarf Miners. It's a whole unit of basically Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, but they can deep strike. So normal rules, 9 inches away, all that. But for an army that's this slow and static, having a huge horde of great weapon warriors deep striking in a backfield on an objective is very important. The miners are very, very important. And they're not Dispossessed, and they're not Cities of Sigmar. So obviously they're trying to get rid of them, but they are actually like legit nice plastic models. So I don't see a reason why they would do that. They have candles on their helmets. They look awesome. So the only way I can run those is if I throw away all these rules I just read you and just run my army as basic order. If I run it as basic order, then I can take miners, and I can have 4 of the Dwarf Cannons, 4 Dwarf War Machines, those type of things, which are very, very good. But we're talking about Dispossessed at this point. So if you're running a Dispossessed, no miners, unfortunately. But then all these War Machines count as allies. So you're really limited. You're basically at a 2,000 points, 2,000 point list. You can have 400 points of allies. It's rough because you're basically going to choose between War Machines or Gotrek. And we'll get into Gotrek here in a minute. And even then, even if you choose War Machines, the cannons are 160. So, it's rough. You're only looking at 2 of them. That's it, 2 cannons. So if you like War Machines, you might have to go pure order because they're technically under Ironwell Arsenal. Just a keyword issue that's been going on forever since Age of Sigmar started. Dwarf players have been getting kind of screwed. Our army is scattered all over the place. So let me take you back. I am 9 years old. It's 1996. 5th edition Warhammer Fantasy just dropped. It is a box set that has Bretonnians versus Lizardmen. I don't know if any of you remember this. It's a set where the Bretonnians have like 16 archers, maybe 12. They all look exactly the same. They're all like this. And then all knights. It was a cool box. And then the Lizardmen had their Dwarf Warriors, but not the current models. None of these are the current models. I mean, we're talking old serpent tongue with their like weapons sticking up. So my brother comes to me, my older brother, and he says, "Hey, there's this game called Warhammer where you have these little tiny models and you can paint them and roll dice, and there's this awesome background that's just like Lord of the Rings. Let's get into it." So a friend of mine named Joe, he had the starter set. So he had both the armies. And then my brother got Dwarves and I got Beastmen. So I still remember to this day, the Beastmen go all with their halberds, just kind of standing there like that. It was so much fun. Just nostalgia, just fills you up. It was also a time when I was playing a lot of Warcraft on the computer, so it all kind of fit in, in that fantasy esque type thing. Obviously, this is before the Lord of the Rings movies came out, so all I had done is read Lord of the Rings, the novels. So dwarves obviously stuck out. I mean, there's no beastmen in Lord of the Rings, but orcs were in it. We can go into that. But the dwarves were always really cool. The dwarves always won. That's what I remember the most growing up, is that the dwarves always won because we were kids. We didn't play with objectives. We played to the death. We lined up across the battlefield. We raised our glass of whatever soda we drank at the time because we were children. And we just played till it was over. And, you play on the kitchen table. So that holds, a great memory of my childhood. I sometimes feel bad for players that, started in 8th edition 40k or started in Age of Sigmar and never played it before it, because they're already adults or, possibly kids, but this is their memory now. Yes, so fast forward to the year 2020. I decided I'm going to dig out this army and I'm going to go through it thoroughly on my YouTube channel. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come pick up the camera. I'm going to bring you down in here, show you all my models, show the painted models, show each unit, what they're good at, what I love about them, what I don't love about them. I got a bunch of dwarves that are drunk drinking beer in each unit. It's awesome. If you don't drink, I'm not saying everyone should drink, but this is beer and bat reps after all. So you'll have to forgive that Gotrek is not painted. You will see shortly in the future. He's my next painting tutorial. So my last one was Rodigus, the giant great and clean one. Next one's going to be Gotrek. Because I grew up reading all of his novels, the Felix and Gotrek novels, or Gotrek and Felix novels, and they were great. I don't know if they hold up, because I haven't read them since I was a kid, but I was really happy when they came out with this new Gotrek model, and I knew I had to get it, I have to paint it, I have to use it. It's incredibly powerful. We might have to house rule it to be 1,000 points instead of 540, 520, whatever it is. But yeah, let me bring you in close, show you some of these models. Cheers. So the first thing I want to show is one of the first models that we ever painted. Now, in my memory, I painted it, but it could have been my brother. I mean, we're talking 9 or 10 years old. Classic dwarf, just angry stance. He's lost his shield somewhere along the way.
Black armor, black helmet, white hair, gray beard, red shoes, hilarious. Back when everyone just ran goblin green on the base and that was it. Just slap it with goblin green and move on. Years later, we're talking, we'll say 10 years later, I was probably 19. I painted this guy. So skills are getting a little better. This is the Dwarf King with shield bearers. It was an option back in the day. Just made him taller so he could cut heads off of people. He's got his cool grudge, Book of Grudges. You know, it's not bad. It's very metallic, very early on with dry brush and ink, if there's even any. Yeah, there's a little bit of ink wash. But, you know, this is a classic model. Classic dwarves. So now, we'll go into the new stuff. First unit that we have is the Quarrels. One of my favorites. Just a classic fantasy unit. Let's get this guy. Classic fantasy unit. Just a great model. Got the ropes on the crossbow. Got his awesome cloak. He's ready to rock. What I also love about this unit is if you can find them, there are metal models where they're taking a little break, leaning on the crossbow and drinking some ale. Oh, it's great. Such a great pose. Got another one with a darker beard. He's loving it. He's taking a break. The enemy's too far away. You don't have to worry about it. Next. Sorry, my room is busy. All right. Next in line, we have the handgunners, or the thunderers, as they've been known for quite a while. These were the staple back in the day. Your opponent brought a bunch of Chaos Warriors or Lizardmen. It was time for the thunderers. These guys are great. He's got a bunch of gold on his beard. Looks like he's looking at his rifle trying to figure out how it works. Got a shield on the back because, amazingly enough, they could have shields and guns, which is awesome. I really like the model of the leader. He's just dual wielding pistols, just angry as all get up with his Viking helmet. So great. And then the banner. I really like the banner because there are pistols on the banner. Just a really cool little addition. Yeah, really, really cool. Okay, since we're sticking with the shooty parts of the army, look at these. We got bolt thrower, we got grudge thrower, we got triple cannons, organ gun, we got the COG Smith. Now you do have to ally this guy in, but he's worth it because he lets all the war machines re-roll misses. Super good. Because he has the engineer keyword, and most of those war machines have the special rule where if they're near an engineer, they re-roll. Next, the hammers, the mainstay, the heart and soul, meat and potatoes. They're still around. They still have rules of any dwarf or dispossessed or Durban army. This is the newer version of the king. Not too different, just better, more in line with the color scheme that I'm doing with this army. Yeah, great unit. Great all around. Got the Dwarf King on his little stone. The Oath Stone used to be a thing back in the day if you've never played it. Basically, it was like a stone that you could stand on and it made all your abilities way bigger and more awesome, but you couldn't move all game. It's pretty hilarious. Next, some of the best models GW's ever made. Sorry about my shaky cam, guys. I'm not using the gimbal. I'm trying my best here. These are the Longbeards. These are the guys you hear about. They argue about kids. They argue about kids these days. These are the bearded boomers arguing about the millennials, griping and moaning. These guys are the real deal. They've been around forever. They've seen it all. They're unfazed. Their beard goes all the way to the base. The Longbeards are great. Their fluff is great. They complain. They bitch and moan. And basically, they dish out bonuses to the units around them, which is just so cool. So cool. Back here, we've got some old school iron breakers, pardon me. And then right here you have, I think these are Kings of War models. They could be the newer iron breakers. I'm not positive. I'm not recollecting right now, but yeah, I'd have to look that up. They're pretty cool models, though. They kind of stand out. They look a little different, which makes me think they might be Kings of War, the ones in the green there. Back here, hordes and hordes and hordes of Dwarf Warriors. I love these guys, and I really love the leader. He's leading them forward to war, but he has a frothy mug of ale spilling over because he has his priorities straight, people. All right, so as I lean over the table, we have Gotrek waiting to be painted. He's waiting. He is going to get quite a paint job. I have it all written out. It's like 50 steps. So he's coming soon. Behind him, I'm actually going to bring you around this side. Some of my favorite models ever, the Miners. Each model has a melting candle on their helmet, which is just hilarious. The leader has like a power drill that has rules and melting candles on his helmet. Where's my favorite? There's a guy. Yeah, here we go. This guy drinking his beer, taking a break with his pickaxe, flaming candle on his helmet. Just great classic fantasy models. I mean, they're just great. So here, I kind of amassed my leaders around this. This is a Bones miniature. It's supposed to be a real model. It's a king on a dwarf king on a throne, but I thought if I painted it to look like marble, it would just make a really cool terrain piece. I think it turned out pretty good. So we go to Rune Smith or Rune Priest, Rune Lord. Pretty awesome. He's got his staff. He's got a hammer on his back. He's ready to rock. We got a Slayer, or as they're known now, an Unforged. Pretty sure that's what they're called. This is a classic model. If my brother's watching, he'll remember this guy. This guy's so old, the flakes of metal are starting to peer through the paint again. This used to be called a Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer was basically the Lord equivalent of a Slayer. They had different levels. You could be Troll Slayer, Giant Slayer, Dragon Slayer, and then finally Demon Slayer. This guy's been in so many battles in my life. I can't even believe it. And then we have pretty much one of the best models that they've ever made, in my opinion. He's got some dog hair on him, of course. But yes, he is the Battle Standardbearer. Not even sure they have rules for this anymore. But basically back in the day, each army usually could take a Battle Standardbearer and it put out a huge bubble of reroll battle shock tests or leadership tests. Trying to get that hair off there. And he's basically giving the come at me bro, come and get it with his finger, screaming at people with this great banner. It's a solid lead heavy model. You know, just old school stuff here, guys. And then last but not least, we have Buckman himself. This is Buckman, people. If you're watching from the UK and you've been to Buckman's brewery, I'm very jealous. This is him. He getting drunk. He cheering people on. We got Sleepy with his empty thing of ale because he dumped it all out. Cheerful. He's just cheering and singing and cheering a fighting song. And then a couple more over here. Same models. You know, back in the day they didn't have a lot of options, but man, these guys are cool. So we got Buckman and all of his merry gang of, I don't know, brewers, basically. So yeah, this is it, guys. I'm going to be going through each unit here shortly. Different videos. Yeah, I'm sad this is the one model that got really famous for the Dwarves before the Karajan Overlords came out. But this was in Silver Tower, the COG Smith with his shotgun and dual pistols. Sweet model, but, you know, I wish we had some more classic Dwarves to look forward to. I'm not sure it'll ever come. That being said, it looks like they're redoing High Elves, so maybe someday they'll redo basic Dwarves, not the Slayers or the Sky Dwarves. But, I'm not a big complainer. It helps that I own, like, most of the armies in Warhammer, but, we just bide our time, use the Dwarves when we're allowed to, use the rules they give us, and see how they do. I think they could be pretty good. We're going to actually run a battle report here pretty soon of the Dispossessed versus Night Hunt. And that'll be pretty exciting. Big, scary, spooky ghosts versus hordes of dwarves. I'm going to try not to use Gotrek because he's so broken. Like, he just wins you the game, basically. But yes, we're going to paint this up really soon. So this is the first of a series on Dispossessed or dwarves here on Beer and Bat Reps. Purely for nostalgia and cool factor. I just always love these guys. And we will be back with a unit by unit little run through here shortly. Like, subscribe. I've been getting content out quick here, guys. Thank you so much for watching and viewing and subscribing. Hopefully we get some Dispossessed fans on here. Comment. Leave in the comments when you started Dispossessed. I would love to hear it. Talk about your army. I chat. I answer comments on YouTube, so please let me know. Thank you so much for coming. This is Nick from Beer and Bat Reps, and we'll check you later. See ya.